Guys, we got a great video for you, and what we're going to talk about is how you can increase your odds of surviving, winning in some type of violent encounter. What we want to talk about today is how you're training. What are you inputting? And in specific detail, what we want to go into is creating automaticity. Automaticity. Think about when you tie your shoes. When you're a little kid, or if you're a parent and you've got little kids, remember you got to sit there and show each and individual step. When you were little, it seemed daunting. How do I do this? Now what do you do when you tie your shoe? You sit down and you immediately and you tie it, right? You created a level of automaticity. I guarantee none of you adults sit down and think, how do I tie my shoe? You don't start, one goes over, around, through. You just do it, right? The other thing we're going to talk about, science refers to as slip and capture errors. Slip and capture errors. What's an example of that? Well, that's when you intend to do one thing, but you do another. And the thing that you do that is the other is the thing that you've trained so many times. Here's a great example. Back in the day before the Air Force existed, the Army Air Corps, which is what was the predecessor to the Air Force, they had a certain type of plane. They realized, the Army did, kept having a certain type of accident. And the accident was, as the pilot would land, and these were good pilots, they'd taxi through the airport and they'd find the spot where they were gonna park the plane. And as they did that, for some reason, these pilots were folding the front landing gear and the fuselage would crash to the tarmac and cause major damage to the plane. This happened a bunch and these guys were getting in trouble. You're negligent, you're reckless, you're not thinking about what you're doing, you're maybe even trying to damage these planes. These were good pilots. Finally, somebody at the Army says, we got to take a look at this. This has happened enough times that something's going on here. Here's what they found out. The plane that these pilots were flying previous to the one that this accident was happening in had the parking brake lever in the exact same location as this lever that collapsed the front landing gear. That's a slip and capture error. These pilots, many times, could be hundreds or even thousands of times, applied this parking brake as they landed the previous model aircraft. This new model aircraft, that lever was now folding the landing gear. You see how this could be problematic. Fast forward to today, companies like Airbus, this is pretty cool, they're modern big airliners. Across each platform, buttons and controls are in the same spot. So that if a pilot gets in model A, B, C, of course I'm making these models up, the buttons are going to be in the same spot, the controls. Let's take this to training with guns. Let's just say every day you've got this gun in this holster. So every day you've got a Beretta 92 Langdon Tactical Technologies Elite in a Safariland ALS outside the waistband holster. Every day, this is what you carry. Every day. Notice that in order to actuate this holster release, I need to apply pressure there to that thumb button. Now, you're going out with your wife on the town, and you can't carry this on your hip, so what do you grab? You grab this, gun's clear, and you grab this, right? I can shove that sucker right here, right? So here's where I'm going with this. Now this goes out of the equation. I've got all my training with this. I've got countless hours on the range, countless hours of dry fire, countless hours of practice, loading, unloading, holstering, drawing, keeping this gun working through malfunctions, countless hours. Now in the moment, I need this. I need this. What's the problem? Well, quite simply, even if I put in tons of training time on this, the way that our brain is wired, it says, Mick, and now I've got to catch up. Problem is when you need to do something like that quickly and your life depends on it. It's not just funny. When we start talking about how long it takes us human beings to react and then respond to some kind of stimulus, we've all seen a timer, right? A shot timer. Beep. Did you know that when that beep goes off, it takes you and me about a whole quarter of a second to hear that beep, register it in our brain, and then for our brain to tell our hands, get the gun. That may take up to a half a second or more just for that. Beep, go. It's not even get the gun out, just go, go. So now you've got to physically traverse your hand through time and space, get it out of the holster, join your hands together and shoot whatever needs shooting, be it a paper target in a match or a bad guy. By that point, if you're really good from that beep to that first shot, let's say it takes you a second to do that. What's a second? Did you know that an average person like you or me can press a trigger? How many times can I press this trigger in 1 second? Let's check it out. Ready? Average person can press a trigger 4 to 5 times in a second. So if you now are up against somebody and some stimulus, like them shooting at you, sticking a knife in you, possibly trying to take your weapon, or some other type of violence that dictates and allows you the response of deadly force is happening out in front of you, it's going to take you time to react to it. Automaticity is going to happen when you stick with one gun, when you stick with one holster, when you stick with one platform. Automaticity and limiting your potential failures is going to happen in a few ways. John Bianchi said it best. One gun, one holster, all the time. Who is John Bianchi? Look him up. The Bianchi Cup is named after him. Bianchi Holsters was his company. Safariland ultimately bought that brand, Bianchi Holsters, or they became part of the Safariland group, is a better way I should probably state it. Sold over 40 million holsters under that brand name around the globe, and a very accomplished shooter. John said, one gun, one holster, all the time. Well, Mick, I have other guns and I like carrying other guns. I hear dudes say, I'm gonna put this new gun into the rotation. When I hear that, it makes me cringe. I don't care how much you go to the range and shoot. You are confusing shooting and having fun. Even if you're training hard, you're confusing it with what happens when your brain goes into a mode where for the first time in your life, or 10th time in your life, somebody's trying to kill you. Somebody's trying to end your life. It is not the same. It is not analogous. It is not related to shooting at the range. You may have all of these different guns and you may shoot them all well. In the moment when you have a quarter of a second to react, a fifth of a second to react, are you going to bet? Are you going to bet that the deep recesses of your brain that you hardwired to do different things, do you think and are you willing to bet that your brain's going to choose right every time? And are you willing to bet that when you could die if your brain does the wrong thing? It's heavy duty stuff, guys. And in reality, if somebody is serious about training to live, you will have processes, you will have techniques that build that automaticity. Part of that automaticity is using the same gun, the same holster, and doing it all the time. If you don't like it, that's on you. But I will guarantee you, you will not be as good, as proficient, as skilled, and as likely to prevail as if you're using 4 or 5 different guns, even 2 different guns, even holsters in different locations. I hope you guys got something out of this. I got something out of sharing it with you. This is the kind of stuff that we pass on in our courses. This is the kind of material that I think is of utmost importance to you. Anybody can teach you guys how to shoot a pistol. Anybody can teach you guys how to load. It's creating processes that allow you to automatically do these things, freeing up your conscious brain to apply tactics. That's another video. If you guys like these videos, hit the subscribe button, share them with your friends. Love you, love yourself, don't be a dickhead.